Most youth in Zimbabwe, they're complaining of lack of alternatives, lack of opportunities, lack of transparency in politics and policies that includes them. The youth is crying out loud. This week, we dedicate a song by Holiday called Amai. It is a deep message and rooted to uplift the youth to understand the type of problems that the youth in Zimbabwe are facing. Happy listening and welcome to the Broadcast Show. And I'm your host, Wilbert. At the onset of the enforced lockdown, the government of Zimbabwe announced that Zimbabwe United Passenger Company, popularly known as Zupco, will be the sole provider of public and intercity public transport. Now, this move is a great move, given that Zupco is affordable, but I'm not too sure about the dependable part. But at least, let's give credit when it's due. Zupco has come to save a lot of cost, which was borne by young people and also average people in Zimbabwe. This week, we look at Zupco and related transport services in Zimbabwe. The reasons behind Zupco being initiated as the sole provider of public transport in Zimbabwe is not today's discussion. However, it is important to know that across all over Africa and across all over the world, public transport is being provided by state or at least parastatals that belong to the state so that the government can blight and also bring in the change which is needed in terms of lawlessness which is brought about private sector and also the issue of bearing the cost from the people. So it is important to know that Zimbabwe is not making an unprecedented move, which is just basically a normal average from all other countries across the world. However, the rollout of the Zupco bus initiative might have been done too abruptly, given the nature that Zupco does not have the system, the personnel, and at least the equipment on the fleet which meets effective demand of the people in Zimbabwe, because there are a lot of people in Zimbabwe, given a population of about 15.6 million in Zimbabwe, and an average of 60% being the young people that commute from daily basis from schools and work-related outputs. This is a very big number which Zupco cannot 100% serve accurately. The abrupt nature in which this was done meant that private and individuals that were heavily invested in this public transport or in these private transport entities were left with a lot of fleets in which they cannot use for them to generate income for them. Now, we spoke to a couple of people and they were crying foul how the nature it was abruptly done without them being given what we call at least a heads up. At least they needed at least to know in what to do. Now, the terms and conditions of their buses or their combis for them to be associated with Zupco is very difficult, and the amount of remittance or the returns that they're getting back is not as effective or is not as much as they were getting prior in the days when they were running on their own. Commuters also have been badly affected as many pickup points have surfaced with long queues which are unbearable. Old people, young people, and also the matured people have been succumbed to these long queues in which are not sustainable and which are not good for everybody. And we spoke to a couple of people and this is what they had to say about the long queues that they're getting from waiting for Zupco each and every day in the morning and in the evening.
Well, as a young person and a student at the University of Zimbabwe, I believe that the initiative of the Zupco buses is a good initiative. Why? Because it's making life easier for students, because now students can easily commute to campus at low prices and low costs. But now the challenge comes with a lot of queues, like long queues, where students have to wait for Zupco combis and Zupco buses. So we would like to request, if possible, there is an addition of Zupco buses, because now, as it stands, we have Zupco buses and Zupco combis, but they are less than the number that is required for the students to commute to school without any delays, especially when writing exams.
Okay, Zupco yakanaka, because my price are nani, like they are affordable. I'm sure everyone is able to afford my prices, but this was easy. The challenge is on the kuti mashoma mabasi. As you can see, people are waiting for about two hours. Munagamira bus kutaenda kubasa, munaenda kuchikoro. So I would appreciate if they increase my fleet yao, and also like government yakataura they are going to provide public lane for public transport. So I think if that initiative is implemented, that could be help a lot.
Zupco was formed initially after 1980 independence. Now, with the sole monopoly as being the public provider of transport and the only player in the transport field, they initially thrived for a very long period of time. But with the advent commuter omnibus, which are privately known as combis, the advent competition which they brought made sure that with baggage years laden with mismanagement, inefficiency and corruption, Zupco suffered a very heavy competition and they dwindled into obscurity. Now, in the run-up to 2006, by then the chairman of Zupco, Mr. Charles Nerera was arrested for corruption and related activities. Now, basically, this shows you that Zupco initially was failing to run afloat due to the issues of corruption. In the run-up to 2008, by then the president, the late R.G. Mugabe, he had a couple of buses from China. 503 days later, Zupco was running aground with a lack of fleet and also failing to pay its workers, its fleet maintenance, and also its staff board members. What we see now is the third attempt to resuscitate, to re-establish the Bayon Zupco of the 1980s. Now, this was successful in the 1980s, and this can be successful with the government input, with the government head. Now, we have seen the president, E.D. Mnangagwa, he has brought in a couple of buses, which if they are sustainably maintained with the resurrection of maintenance depot, as we used to see in 1980s, this can be a game changer. This actually can be the new normal. For Zupco to work efficiently and effectively, there's only internal factors which they need to tweak and work around. Number one, the issue of robust fleet, which is well maintained with manned crew, which is highly equipped. So this calls for the resurrection of maintenance depot. Number two, customer-centered approach. Now, Zupco needs to package utilities and also to make sure that they are appealing to the corporate world and also to the private sector, because they need to sustain and to run as a sustainable development transport provision in Zimbabwe. Number three, effective and establishing of effective pricing of Zupco. Now, we've seen for a long time that Zupco was charging less than 10 cents on a certain kilometer peg, which was being charged 50 cents in private sectors. Now, this is very difficult to see how Zupco can sustainably maintain its fleet, pay its workers, and remain as a going concern if they are not dealing with effective pricing. However, 2 days ago, we saw that the government re-established the pricing, which was now average and in a way which can be sustainable. Above all, number four, the strong corporate management and governance, which puts a hinge and at least a lock on avoiding corruption and related services. Now, we've seen that over the past years, what has limited the effectiveness of Zupco is not the demand, because the demand is there, but it's the corruption and inefficient and incompetent people. Now, if the government can make sure that they grip tight on those areas, Zupco can successfully be the provider of transport in Zimbabwe. We had gone all over the years and they had trouble with the private entities of the combis, the lawlessness and the language in which they were bearing up to the elderly people and the young people, and the drugs in which they were taking within the combis was not something that we'd be proud of as a nation. So this move is a great move. However, it needs to be kept looked and locked so that it can be successfully run in Zimbabwe. And this was the broadcast show. And for your views and comments, we'd like you to get in touch with us. Follow us on our Facebook. I was your host, Wilbert.
I will support in my capacity, I swear. Muku, I will never be your gravity out here. I swear I'll pick you up and kill the tragedies, I swear. I'll call you king, you're the majesty out here.